I will start the recording here, Guilherme. So sorry, everyone, but now we made it work. All right, so I'll read the bio, I'll read the intro, and we'll get started. Perfect. So hello, everyone. We're joined today again for another expert session today. And today our guest is Guilherme Altieri do Amaral, who brings over 20 years of international experience across 4 continents. He has lived and worked in Brazil, the USA, the Netherlands, and more recently in the UAE, where he leads transformation at Agthia Group, one of the largest CPG companies in the Middle East. Operating in more than 45 countries and generating AED 4.56 billion in revenue last year, Aghtia is investing heavily in the future of food. The company recently launched a 54 million corporate venture capital fund focused on food tech, functional products, and supply chain innovation. In this evolved session, Guilherme will walk us through how transformation happens inside a regional CPG giant and how it compares to the innovation cultures in Latam, Europe, and North America. This session, well, we had an issue today, but it's often sponsored by Air Meat. Yeah, also, if you'd like to know more about the Evolve Commerce Club, our club where we connect bright minds like Guilherme, you're very welcome to reach out. Guilherme, welcome. I always start with a controversial question. And the question is, some say the Middle East is trying to buy innovation instead of building it. Is that fair? How does that play out inside a company like Aghtia?
Well, first of all, good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody. I want to, before anything, try to make people's lives easier. So Guilherme, although you and I know it's a very common name in Brazil, right? It's very hard for people to say my name. So just go by Gui. Gui will be fine. That's a very good question. There's definitely a lot of money on the table, especially from the funds that are led by the big sheikhs, for example. My company is not exactly an example of that per se, but it's an example of what this money can do. Aghtia was founded by the founder of the UAE about in the 70s. So this is about almost 50 years ago. And at that time already, his concern was about the food security for the people that live here in this region, which is a concern that the first time I heard about food security, I was a bit ashamed of being Brazilian because we're so busy talking about corruption that food security is not even in the agenda, right? But Aghtia belongs to a fund, one of these funds, which is ADQ. ADQ is the biggest fund of one of the biggest funds in the world. I think it's top 5 in terms of volume of investment transaction. And ADQ has, for example, started their own company just to drive AI capabilities. Just a couple of years ago, they announced a company called G42, partnership with Microsoft and other giant companies to ensure that the Middle East can get faster. I don't know if they're buying their way or their ticket into this in a way that buying what others are doing. Definitely, there is some things that are being copied from other regions. But I think that given the game on data and AI has evolved so much in the last couple of years, especially with Gen AI and all, I think the Middle East is in a position that if the right leaders, the right businesses are working on this, the Middle East might lead some of this rather than copy from the others. So to an extent, they're buying a ticket in the front row because they have the money to do that in such a complex moment in the world right now, Carlos. I hope that answers your question.
That does answer my question. Thank you. Gustavo, please make sure you admit whoever is trying to enter, just so I can focus on the questions. Thank you. So, Guy, perhaps we start with the big picture. Tell us a bit about your journey, until getting to where you are today. You lived in many countries. And then I'm very excited to actually compare to have your helicopter view on everything that is happening. I think there's a lot happening in the world now. So how do you see the Middle East region? We're having a very proactive approach to the Middle East region. We are seeing quite a lot of interest But let's start with the big picture, where you come from, the countries that you lived, and then we'll speak about the global CPG landscape transformation in the region and so on.
All right. Is it okay if I ask Gustavo to share the first
Sure.
slide that I
Yes.
sent, please?
Great. Let
Um,
me just a moment.
yes, I'll give you a moment. No problem at all. And I think I didn't get to say hi to Lais Mihaela. I did. So hello, Mihaela. Hello, Lais as well. Nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you, Guilherme.
Hello. Hello. Very good. So this slide says a lot of things. I think as many Brazilians join, they will say this is kind of some of this is kind of obvious, some of it is not, right? So my family, I have a beautiful wife. Her name is Bruna. Pedro is my son. He's 4 years old now. We are. This is a picture at his school here in Dubai. We're living here in the city for almost 3 years now. And my big passions are on this slide, not necessarily in order. Corinthians is my football team. Picanha, because honestly, there's a lot of good meat out there, but picanha is picanha to the bottom left. Brazilian sushi, I know it's sushi, but Brazilian sushi is a bit weird to people that are not in Brazil, but I love it. I miss it. That's the one thing I miss about Brazil culinary is the Brazilian sushi, because the
Mhm.
rest you can mostly find in other places, picanha included. And I'm a very geek person, although that doesn't always come across. I play a card game actually called Magic the Gathering that you don't need to know about. Very geeky thing, but it's here. So that's a little bit about me. And now talking about my trajectory. So if you don't mind, Gustavo, the next slide, the last slide I think we're going to show today is just to say I started, and what starts before what's in the second slide is I was oh, it says actually before I was born. No, there's nothing, but I was born in 1989. I did computer engineering in not in a very fancy or famous university in Brazil. So I'm from a city called Osasco, close to São Paulo, and yeah, Osasco is famous for hot dogs. Not exactly. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah. But I studied at a university there called Centro Universitário Fiel. That a lot of people don't even know, you know. And still with that, and because during that time there from 2007, 2010, I actually got a job that is not in this life. I started being an English teacher, actually started even before that. And that really changed my life. So the fact that I learned English, I didn't know a lot about it. I had to learn to teach others. That changed my life because it also trained me on public speaking. It trained me on dealing with different people. So it's not on the slide, but I think it's an honorable mention. And that's why I could join such companies as I did, P&G being the first one. Was working for P&G for 7 years. That's when I had my first external international assignment, even living outside the country in 2013. I was for 6 months in Cincinnati. Some people, especially from the US, when I say Cincinnati, they look at me and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, "Oh, I had a great time there, Cincinnati." Although people said there isn't much to do there. After Cincinnati, I moved back to Brazil. I did an outsourcing project, a lot of things that were happening in order and electronic messaging between companies at the time. So this career was very IT related in the first few years. I came back to Brazil, managed the service I created for North America, for Latin America. I eventually moved on to doing some data delivery service, feeding reports, feeding what in the time was the beginning of machine learning. It was not as advanced, nearly as advanced as machine learning or AI today, but it was how we started things. Big data at the time was a buzzword. And eventually I moved to Reckitt. In Brazil, people know Reckitt for making Veja, SBP, and things like this. But in Vanish, outside Brazil, people will know Dettol, they will know Lysol, they will know other brands as well. So I stayed in Reckitt for 5 years, 1 year in Brazil, 2 years in Mexico, 2 years in Amsterdam. In Brazil, I was head of data analytics, insights guy. In Mexico, I was the CIO for the region there. Then I moved on to transform how we were doing digital marketing globally. We created 8 hubs as part of the big program that we did, 8 global hubs. One is here in Dubai, one was in UK, one in Poland, one in Brazil, one in US, one in Malaysia. Yeah, I probably forgot one, but mostly. And then I was in Racket. I was happy and everything, but I got one of my former bosses from Racket moved to Dubai to work for a private equity company. He said, "We're building. We want to build a bit of a shisha empire. Don't quote me on this." They acquired a big participation in a company that is called today is called AIR, or Advanced Inhalation Ritual. So if you don't know shisha, you probably never heard of this, but they have a big brand. The biggest brand actually is called Al Fakir or Al Fakir, which belongs to this conglomerate. They also belong to a UK private equity. I stayed there for almost 2 years. I was the head of e-commerce and digital marketing. So as you can see, it started with full IT, data, then a full scope for CIO, including the data part, and some then migrated to media and marketing, eventually landed on e-commerce and digital marketing. So I love this role, to be honest. We launched a brand from scratch, website, operations, everything we did from scratch, startup mode, so very, very interesting. And after that, there was some time. There was not a lot of space to grow in that company anymore. My boss and I were friends. He had a chat with me. Said maybe it's time we start looking for something different. And then Agthia appeared in my life, and this was in late 2023. And I am today the senior director for digital technology, especially in the commercial domain. So everything that touches e-commerce, sales, digital marketing, and marketing, even if you will, that's where we are. So this is my trajectory. Let's see where it leads. But just wanted to tell you a little bit about this, Carlos, as per your question.
No,
And I
amazing. Yeah,
think we
yeah.
can cut the slide now. We can go back to the camera.
Perfect. Where I like to start is then, I mean, you have this amazing and super international career. When it comes to the CPG landscape, how do you see that things different from, or compare in Brazil, the US, Netherlands, and now that you're in the Middle East? What are the difference? How you compare the regions?
So talking about digital maturity, but also about both in the size of tech, e-commerce, and a little bit about digital marketing as well. Having worked in the different regions, I think the biggest difference is where the regions are in terms of maturity, and the second biggest difference is how much faster, or how fast they are willing to transform. And that's changing. I'm going to comment on what I mean by that, what's changing. But I remember when I went to Amsterdam in 2019, which sounds like an eternity ago now that I say it out loud. 2019, Europe was definitely the most advanced at CPG at the time. That's where you will see a lot of the data practices, GDPR and everything being. So you had a lot of need for even for regulations to be put in place because people were really leveraging this. So between North America and Europe leading the way. And you could see, for example, there was a shift at Reckitt at the time. I remember when we started the global program, we measured how much of the digital media were represented of the total marketing spend, the total branding investment in the company. And we could see while in Europe, you would start from 25% investment, which you may think is a low number. But remember, Reckitt did this transformation because they recognized they were behind the industry on this. In USA, you were probably talking about 15-ish%. In Brazil, less. In the Middle East, it was zero. Within a year, we established lots of the hubs around the world. And I could see with a year live from each hub, so they didn't start at the same time, but after 1 year they were live, the USA moved from their 15 to 50% spent in digital. They had a whole different level of appetite. Europe was following the trend. They went from their 20s to nearly 50s as well. In the Middle East, you could only see going from 0 to 10. So you could have, we were doing the same approach, right? So we had a head for these centers of excellence. We had data scientists. We had marketing technology specialists. We had audience targeting specialists, so you could reach the right people with your media, paid media, but not only. And we were testing, A/B testing everything that we were doing. So we would never assume that because something worked for a brand in UK, it would also work in Dubai or in New York. You would have to test it again, but at least you had a hypothesis, no? Because you learned that it would work, for example, to target video gamers for Finish, the dishwash detergent brand. It was driving up crazy ROI in UK and in Turkey. Okay, we should at least test it in other markets. Some of them came true, some did not. But even doing this type of tests and some of them being positive in the Middle East, the appetite was much smaller to change over time. The change that I see in behavior, and to your question, that when we were starting the conversation today, is the Middle East trying to buy a ticket or buy this to be ahead of the game? And I said, I think the Middle East is trying to buy the front row seat because they're skipping a lot of stages. But that comes with a cost. Companies that are for years underinvested in technology, e-commerce even, are trying to put we say, you know, in Portuguese, they're trying to put the cart in front of the horses, right? And that creates a whole mismatch in expectations. When, for example, you announce, without naming companies, but you announce a new CEO for your company and they talk about driving changes with AI, but if you don't even have a data cloud in place, how are you talking about AI? Are you talking about your e-commerce journey automations if you think CRM is only customer service, which many times is the case in real life situations in the Middle East, Carlos?
Super interesting. And for example, I think you mentioned you didn't talk about so media spend and retail media is a big word today. But for example, in the Middle East, who are I would assume that people are more, and I mean, I'm completely ignorant about everything in regards to the region, but people could be more conservative, and so who are the drivers? You mentioned gamers there, for example. So I would presume that gamers they are, and that's worldwide. That's a portion of the kind of like the population that is more prone to testing things faster, and they could be a driver of innovation, and but it's a niche. Like if you're a gamer, right? So gamers, for example, are like a group that you guys test things to say, okay, this guy's test things faster in terms of retail media or whatever it is in terms of innovation that you have, and then start to roll innovations out from specific groups. So where I'm trying to get is more like, how do you find the cohorts or groups that innovate more? Because you mentioned 10%, right? It was in terms of retail media, or pardon, I have retail media in my head, but digital. In terms of digital media spend compared to the US now, which is very aggressive, and Europe, there it's 10%. So how do you find those drivers, in the region to does it make sense where I'm trying to get?
I think so. Okay, if I understand right, so I want to start from saying that I mean, as in many other regions, but I think here a bit disproportional, especially in the UAE, but in the Middle East overall, quick commerce is crazy growing versus the rest. I mean, e-commerce overall, of course, is growing, but if I had to bet my savings on a company like Talabat, that delivers food and other groceries to your house, within 20 minutes or so, or InstaShop, we also have here in UAE, versus Amazon, I would probably go with quick commerce today, although Amazon I know is consistent and is Amazon, right? No question on Amazon. Because the type of consumption that the people in this region, especially in the middle in UAE, I would say, is used to, is very different from other places. So if you think about Brazil, you'll see Zé Delivery. Zé Delivery will deliver alcohol and other things to your house. Now here, you can just deliver anything, and any product, any e-commerce that does next day delivery is probably too late. That's not best practice. You can't accept next day delivery for most of the products here. Now, companies like these I mentioned, we have a company as well called Careem. Careem was bought by Uber a few years ago. Yeah, so we have Uber, But if you use the app for Uber, it will, on the back end, it will just drive you to whatever Kareem vehicles and everything is available. But Uber is mostly for cars and going in rides and stuff, while Kareem is actually for all the groceries. They have payment services. They're really trying to create a one-stop shop for digital services, and that you can just consume. So um, these companies are really the ones investing. You can see they are the ones I would say are to an extent leading the way. So e-commerce first. They're not necessarily startups. So Talabat and Kareem are far from being startups at this stage. They belong to big conglomerates. Um, there's still space for companies. There's a company I was reading about this week. It was very interesting. They're called Key Pot. I will send you the name later. They're a dark kitchen company. So let's say Papa John's, right? You have your few stores for Papa John's, but you don't cover all the regions in the country. So you hire their services in a region that you can't cover. They will create a dark kitchen. They will deliver. So the whole e-commerce experience is delivered by them many times, or they will just act as the back end of the front end experience that your brand wants to provide. So there is investment, there is will, there's a space to grow. There is space to convince the people as well if you have the right contacts. But there's too much offer, too many people trying to play in the market right now. So, for example, you probably have seen some of these. I get at least 10 emails every day from a new person trying to offer me to buy something for Aghtia. So at Racket, at P&G, you would get a few, but 10 emails every day, 10 emails and messages on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, whatever it is. So it's a bit excessive. So having the right contacts, avoiding spamming, there is a few things that need to. I mean, what's the conversion rate you can expect? No, from spamming people. No.
Yeah, very low.
Yeah, but still they're trying. I wouldn't be able to tell if it works, to be honest. But I never react. I have to actually ignore a lot of these, and it's not because I don't like these people. It's because you just don't have the time.
I get it. Okay. So you're ahead today of a like this massive company, and the first time we spoke, so the one very interesting thing you said, it's like it's the guy who the founder of the company is a sheikh, right? And you said he did
Is the
something.
sheikh of UAE?
The sheikh, right?
Yes.
Or yeah, but it's still a top guy.
Yes.
And so he created a company to secure food. What was that you mentioned?
Yeah. So think about it. This is in the desert, right? So what do you need to ensure you have? Water, flour for bread, and dates because of the religion.
Yeah.
You know, the Muslims must eat dates or will eat dates very often. He started a company in 1978 to produce water and flour. That's how Aghtia was born. What happened over time is the government saw the good work that was being done by administering these businesses and growing, and they gave one company, the dates company was a gift from the government to Aghtia. Incorporate this. But then ADQ, the fund behind Aghtia, started funding acquisitions. So Aghtia expanded in the last 4 years, expanded to Egypt drastically. We have purchased at least two local companies that are very well known in Egypt. One is called Abu Auf. Thanks for putting the slide in. One is called Abu Auf. You can see if you go to the third row, the fourth name, Abu Auf. Abu Auf started as one store selling nuts and specialties, like they would sell even flour, if you will, but powders of many kinds. Eventually, they evolved into selling chocolate, biscuits, and other things. And now we have more than 300 stores for Abu Auf. And this company started just 15 years ago. So 300 stores. And they're the local Starbucks. If you go to Egypt, you're going to see Abu Auf everywhere. It's just a different tier, maybe. Starbucks will be differently priced. But still, Abu Auf, you have 70% of your consumer goes there to have coffee. The other acquisition was Agthia, which is to the left of Wolf. Agthia is a meat, chicken, beef, and lamb processed company. They'll make hamburgers and nuggets and even impossible meat at some time. At some point, we made with Nabil and with Agthia. So these companies and the profile of companies, they used to be family companies. No? So in my case specifically, part of the challenge that we have as part of our transformation is that because a lot of the target companies that we are acquiring, they come from family managed businesses, there's very low maturity in terms of what's the basics, even from sometimes even from safety point of view, but I would say mostly from technology, e-commerce, many times is seen as a cost. So why do I need a consumer application? So many times this could be questioned. If I'm just delivering water to everybody's houses, maybe you don't need it. And you do have companies in the region that don't need it. So Aghtia just announced, for example, the acquisition of a new water company called Riviere. It was announced last week. Riviere is a local company in UAE, and they don't have a website. They don't have an app. Which means they have very little technology-wise, and they're growing consistently over the past years, and their margin is not bad at all. So there is reason to believe that business can be done in a, let's say, old-fashioned way here in the UAE, at least, or even in the Middle East. I was in KSA last week, and I saw a lot of similarities there. But there's also opportunity for the ones that actually want to move forward. And one advantage of working with the Emirati people specifically is that even if they're not an expert on a subject, they are seeing what's happening in the world, and they really want their country to thrive on this digital journey. So that's why you see what I mentioned, investment in creating companies like G42 to power AI and other data capabilities, or even instead of going and hiring BCG or McKinsey to do your consultancy, ADQ decided to create their own company to do consultancy. They created Contango. Right? So that's the kind of mentality. See, how do we reduce the dependency from what's external, become self-sufficient on the things that we believe are really important?
That's amazing. So what's I mean, you mentioned that you're ahead of commercial and tech initiatives, right? You have this small portfolio of brands to be taking care, to be looking after. And so what are you doing exactly? Like, so, well, yeah.
My role specifically, I take care. I have two roles specifically. I am the front face of the digital department to the BU presidents and their leadership teams. We have 4 business units in the company today. We have protein, snacks, agribusiness, which we do a lot with farmers, especially in the UAE. We have more than 25,000 farmers, Emirati farmers in the UAE. And the water and food business unit as well. Yeah. So these teams, they have completely different level of maturity digital wise, ambitions digital wise. And what we did in the past 2 years, we have a new CDO since 2 years and a little bit ago. His name is Vanderlei. Casually, he's Swiss Brazilian as well.
Okay.
I didn't know him before, by the way. So we actually met here. But we are changing not only what the technology department did. It used to be an IT department. So no, we need to transform this into a digital department, complement the work that some of the business units are doing, either because they just don't have the people to do it, or sometimes they don't have the expertise. So as an example, we created right now within the team an small operation in Egypt to optimize e-retail experience for our brands. So we have SEO, content, performance measurement and management. So this team is working with the brands, with the sales teams to run e-commerce internally, many times professionally for the first time. So you didn't even, when I arrived, we had Google Analytics nowhere. There was no performance meeting because there was only sales data. There was no other data to discuss. So when you have a brand, the biggest brand in water in the UAE is our brand, which is Alain or Alain. or
Mhm.
many ways of saying it. But Elaine has 33% market share today. And we have a consumer app that is used by more than 100,000 people every month in the country.
Mhm.
And there was no data being generated from the app, no behavioral data, no optimization in place. So we worked with the business unit and created not only the data layer, but also the process layer, what we need to discuss and optimize over time. It sounds very basic, no? So if I tell this story to someone in Europe, they'll tell me this is something we did maybe 10 or more years ago. But this is the challenge that we're having in many of the cases. If you are able to convince them to do the investment, the advantage, as we already said, is that you can skip all these years and go straight to what a lot of people already know, no? And then from there to AI is not so big step in 2025.
Very interesting. We started a bit late due to some technical difficulties. We have Mihaela, Hawan. Guys, please ask your questions as well. You're very welcome. Just please, if you're able to open your cameras, it's always good.
Here is easier, right? So we don't
Yeah,
need
you don't need to.
anyone. Yeah. Yeah, Guilherme, let me ask you one thing. So it's more related, more specific, I think. So we had it's about AI, and we had a conversation with someone, with Alexis she's from Germany, and she's like the retail reporter, as she said. She called herself, and she had a conversation. It was an interesting conversation, and we discussed a bit about that with people from Lavazza, the coffee brand. And she said that they were using AI in a different way, because when we see most brands, no, but a lot of brands, people are always talking about AI, how to use AI for the end consumer, and for internally companies don't share too much, and they said that they have built like the personas of their clients, and then they were using these personas to train their salespeople. Yes, so we have built a persona with the buyer from a huge supermarket chain. We have built a persona of a small market, people that has one market in their neighbor, different personas, and then they train speaking with the AI with all of the data that they already have, so they can train and they can understand how to better relate with them. So this one was one thing that I remembered when you were talking about. So you were trying to bring some new things and create also the expertise for the people that for the team that they probably sometimes don't have, or using things that new way. So how are you managing these things across all the brands and all the verticals, as you said? So how are you using specifically AI? Let's bring to this with all this. So is there anything like different that you're using, or something that you can say, so, oh, this is...
Yes, there is one different thing that I can say. There's two things that I think a lot of companies already do. So we today, and in full transparency, we have a digital strategy, but we don't have at this stage yet an AI strategy individually, let's say. Why is that? We are busy, to Carlos' last question, we are busy doing very foundational things. We have just set up our Azure cloud. Okay, so very basic. Now, even with that, two basic, one not so basic things we're doing. One is, the usage of Copilot. A lot of people are using that already. There's trainings everywhere. People love it. So that's one. The second, although not perfect, the second is security cameras in the factories. So, you
Mhm.
know, when people are stepping the wrong place or moving dangerously, so that will generate alerts and even speak automatically to the people, so they do the right things and don't put their lives in danger. Because unfortunately, we did have a few incidents that almost had fatal consequences, and now that has drastically been reduced. Um, and the most innovative one. So we are one of the biggest dates, Tamara, no? Dates distributors in the world. Okay? We buy dates from many markets. We not only resell them, but we also make value-added products like chocolate dates or sweetened paste, or even the famous Dubai chocolate, kunafa, pistachio with dates. Why not, right? So we do that as well. But the point is, when you buy the dates, you need to verify the type of the date, the variety. I don't know if you guys know this. There's more than 40 varieties of dates. You need to verify if the date is, if there's levels of infestation in the dates that you might need to reject the product, depending on what you're buying. And there's also grading on the dates depending on the size, because we say that the meatier, no, the bigger in the end of the day, no, the date, the more expensive it will be, and it can be resold for. So if you have a date that is like this, there's a date like this will definitely be more expensive and more value added to us and to the retailer as well. The people who do this selection and this evaluation of the dates today are mostly 60, 65, 70 years old. They need to retire at some point. So to replace them over time, we are creating an AI, a computer vision capability to identify the dates, and then these people are just validating. So hopefully over a few months, maybe a little more, we'll be able to let the people retire with all their dues and payments and everything, which was not something we had a strategy for until about a year ago, let's say.
Great, great.
To give you just one number that might be relevant, in the last season, we were supposed to buy, then we resell later, more than 130 tons of dates. So it's a lot of dates.
Yeah. And you sell you sell it for the whole world.
We
For
have deals with USA, like
Mhm.
Sam's Club. We have Brazil, Atacadão. We
Mhm.
have in the Middle East a lot of them. India is one of our fastest growing markets as well. What is happening actually is people are getting to know it, because if you remember, even from Brazil, I don't know, in Croatia, do you have dates, Miela? Is that common to have dates? No, in Brazil as well. Yeah, you have to go to the downtown, that big specialized supermarket, and it will cost you maybe $20-30 a kilogram. It's like, who's gonna buy that, right? So what's happening is, with the different types of dates, there's a little bit of a democratization of the fruit as well. So it's getting to new geographies, and people are starting to understand that, man, this is natural, this is sweet, it's so good. So the consumption of dates worldwide is also growing a lot, not only within the Muslim people, who are the usual and the original, if you will, consumers of dates.
I think, well, in Denmark you can find a lot of them, but I think it also, like in Europe, in countries where you have more Muslims, you're probably going to find more of them, because
Yeah.
in Germany probably you will find it a lot. In Brazil, I agree.
Germany.
It was alien, completely alien.
Yeah, yeah. I believe here in Europe, I believe Germany and UK for sure. Germany. Yeah, so Hawan, Mihaela, Hawan always have a good question, so I'll let you with this pressure.
Yeah, Guilherme, thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting to hear your path and what the company is doing. And it's interesting that you actually started with computer engineering. And yeah, actually, Gustavo was on the track to ask about AI. I was also wondering, because we're an AI development company. So I was wondering, do you have do you do AI internally or do you work externally with companies?
Very good question. We don't have any headcounts that are technical enough today to develop it internally. So whenever we buy a product, like Copilot is their own product, but if it's the Dates case, which is our own product we're creating, there is a partnership with a university locally, which is called Mohammed bin Zayed AI University. So yes, they created AI University in Abu Dhabi. And there are students that are working in partnership with us. But answer your question, at some point, we're going to have to move on to something a bit more internal. And I would expect not the full development, but at least the core technical team, the product team to be internal, leveraging partners that we probably don't have today, because we're leveraging the university partnership at this stage.
Mm-hmm. And is it, for example, in MENA region more common to work with companies that are based there, or are they open to work more with international companies? What's your kind of feeling about that?
Very good question. I've seen both situations, even within my current and my past company. It depends on who's paying the check, the budget, and the type of service or technology that you're trying to buy, capability you're trying to buy. What do I mean by that? If you're in a company where you have more, let's say, Arab leadership, they will try usually to find Arab partners. Also, because like we have in other regions, no? So if you talk about Europe, Portugal is considered to an extent a low-cost location, no, to hire people to work overseas and everything. The same applies here. Thinking about Egypt. So Egypt, I don't know if you guys know, but they went through civil wars and things like this. That today they're not, thank God, in a war, but they are going through a financial crisis. Inflation is very high, not like Venezuela, Argentina high, but still high. And that is causing the market to really be devalued versus the rest. So, Mihaela, if you're going to work with someone, if you have a product, you really have the use case, can you still sell it here? Yes, absolutely. As long as you don't have a huge budget limitation on the one you're trying to sell to, because then they're kind of forced to go to Egypt, in some cases to India, who is 3 hours away.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
On a flight.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, thank you.
No problem. We have done work with even company from Ireland, so again, Croatia is probably cheaper than Ireland. Yeah. So that's just an example, not a defining factor usually, no.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but do you think it's then easier, for example, to sell, like you said, a product already rather than a service itself, or again, it depends?
Product like an IT product or like a physical product like CPG?
Like an IT product.
Okay. Product versus service. I think I wouldn't really differentiate the two in terms of difficulty of selling. I would say depends. If you need to put your feet here, you need to come network.
Okay.
So two small things I want to mention. Maybe you reminded me of a story. I was in one of my previous company, and there was a contract with an agency. I'm just gonna say that because I can't keep up the details. It's not a very good story. So that that company had a contract signed with us saying we're gonna execute X amount of activity, which was not, let's say, it would lead to sales, but they were not necessarily sales oriented. Somehow they accepted to put in the contract that they would get paid if the company sold over a specific amount of units of the product that they were working for. They didn't. We didn't sell. I inherited that contract, and the first thing I had to do is go to that agency and say that we're gonna pay you. The contract says, that if you don't do this, that you don't achieve this target, there's no payment. And the person on the other side looked me in the eye and said, I think there is a misunderstanding here. I'm not a sales person. I can't be held accountable for what's, even if it's in the contract. So be very careful. That's why having the feet on the ground, understanding, getting to know, getting some references who you're dealing business with is very important here. The second and very related to this comment is the way to do business in Middle East is through relationships. So that's why important being here as well. In Brazil, I know this is very important to us, right? So if you go to work and you ask a business question to somebody without asking how they are doing, you're extremely rude. Well, here, there's a whole nother level to that.
Okay.
So yeah, so having relationships is what makes business move. Even within the company, it's what makes things move most of the time. And people react really poorly to pressure in general. Pressure is not very well accepted. In Brazil, you pressure people, they deliver more. Here, you pressure people, they deliver less, in my
Okay.
experience.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Alan?
Yeah, really, really interesting. Your story and your path and your experience. What sounds like to me is, as you perfectly said, they want to buy a ticket in the front row. So not necessarily they have the culture, they have all the understandings, but definitely they have the money to do whatever they want. So okay, we need an AI, let's create a university for that. We want that, let's create. So, but in some cases they are like you are not from Dubai, you are immigrant, so they are bringing people from other places that already have the experience to create the culture inside. And that's right.
That is
My
right.
understanding.
90% of the UAE's population is from outside the country. 90.
Yeah.
But what is interesting is that is a very unique reality to the UAE. So if you talk about Saudi, so Saudi, just to put in perspective, right? So
Mhm.
UAE is about 10, 11 million people, okay? That's it. You have about a million Emiratis, and then you have about 40%, 50% of people are from India and Pakistan, which is usually, not always, the base of the pyramid. So there is a lot of working class people that come here from these two countries, although very, very successful businessmen as well. And then you start seeing people from other Arab countries. So there's another 20-ish% from other Arab countries like Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt. And then you get to Europeans, and Latin America is not even in the map, right? While you go to Saudi has, if I remember the number well, about 70, 80 million people. So way bigger. So size of the market, again, size of the opportunity is way bigger. They have more money than UAE, right? But they don't have the same attraction factors. So it was curious, and then I'll share my perspective. Please, people from the world, especially the Arab world, don't judge me as a Brazilian speaking from his very little experience. So they say Dubai has transformed a lot over the last 10 years. I wasn't here 10 years ago. What I can tell you about Dubai today is that living in Dubai, dressing in Dubai is very similar to all the other places I've been.
Mhm.
If you go to Abu Dhabi or to Al Ain, it starts becoming a little bit different, especially in Al Ain. To give an example, something I learned here, I can't extend the hand to the ladies, right? So cultural difference that you just can't, right? Don't sometimes you can't talk to them. In Saudi, it is still more like Al Ain. Although when you talk to the people there, they say, no, this is like Dubai. It's exactly like Dubai here today. They quite like it. I was talking to quite a few people there in Jeddah. I was in Jeddah last weekend, and they really like it there. But in all honesty, it's still a few years behind Dubai, not only culturally, but also in terms of what the city has to offer. Dubai is I wouldn't say São Paulo, New York level of craziness, but it will eventually get there. You can get any kind of food. I mean, until at least 2 a.m. in the morning, it's not that difficult. When I lived in Europe, I remember I had a fight with poor Dutch lady in Albert Heijn because I needed to buy diapers at 8:40 p.m. and the store would close at 9 p.m. and I couldn't get into the store. She didn't let me in. Right? So there's these, but the thing is, Saudi has more money, but they don't have as many attraction factors. The UAE has a strategy of growing population, Helen. Did you know that? They want to grow the people from outside. They want to double the population coming from outside the country by 2040. The only way you can do that, first of all, you need to build infrastructure. They're building the trains, the metro stations. You need to have housing for these people. Man, how many new buildings and houses you can see around here? It's crazy. Just in my neighborhood, probably in the last year, 200 plus houses from scratch. I mean, they didn't exist. It was sand. And now they're all here, people living in them. Me included, no? So the investment is on every single sector. I would say real estate is probably number 1 or 2. But they really want people to come here, and they buying the front row ticket. Dubai specifically, I think they have the right to win. If we're talking marketing, they have the right to win to bring the talent from anywhere in the world. If you come to Dubai, there's a high chance you're going to like living here. And the last comment, I think the profile of the people coming here is also changing, because a lot of people were coming here thinking I'm going to go for 2-3 years, save some money and go back. But now you talk to a lot of people, they say, no, I don't want to go back.
Interesting.
I cut Gustavo. I think he was going to say something, no? Or no?
No, sorry. I was just asking complimentary on what you were talking. They still have this no tax policy for companies that are registered, that they have the headquarters there.
They introduced the VAT this year. I think I'm not, and I think it's raising next year. I don't remember. I think they started at 5%. They're raising it to match Saudi's VAT, which is 15% for companies. I might be wrong though, but something like that. For people though, there's no tax in income, right? So if you get your same salary in Europe, in many countries, you move here, immediately you have 100% raise, immediately. Because you don't have any tax. Yeah. I was paying, I was an expat in Amsterdam, but most people there pay 51% tax. How much do you pay in Croatia, Mihaela? Do you know?
Around 25%.
Oh, that's pretty good. Better than Brazil.
That's good. That's very good. Denmark, 42 and up. All right. This has been amazing. Guilherme, my only final question, and then we'll have to wrap this up, is really regarding. So I think the cultural aspect is super interesting. Navigating these different cultures, like within the company, right? So the question is more like, if you had to give us some lessons, which you did, but in terms of navigating this highly diverse multi-country operation, and how do you scale that? If you could summarize that in a couple of lessons, I want to have a nice snippet for LinkedIn later. What are the lessons?
So I think the first is face-to-face is king. So yes, you can meet remotely later, you can introduce yourself, but the way you're going to really make the wheel turn is by being here. If you have a company, yes, there is a chance you can win an RFP or something from outside, but you're going to need a case locally. If you don't have a case locally, it will be very hard for you to sell, because as most regions have that thought, they also have it here. But you do have an example for my industry or for my region, and it's the same, right? Face-to-face will make your relationship management easier as well, right? So you need to escalate something, much easier to get something on a favor basis than by bashing your service provider or your client. You're never going to bash, probably, no, but it's on a relationship is how you're going to fix and arrange business for yourself. If you're thinking of coming to work here, that's also valid. I've met quite a few people in the past 2 years that were living in Portugal, in Spain, even in Brazil, in Canada. And they wanted to come and live to Dubai. And the ones that actually relocated were the ones that came and spent time on the ground. Either they came courageously and abandoned whatever they had in their original country and found a job, created their own company. Very little bureaucracy, by the way, to create your own company here. Um, uh, or they abandon everything, or they really got the job only after creating their own network here. So I know a guy that spent here. He came here for 3 months. He said, "I took vacation, sabbatic. I'm building relationships. That's my objective." And he was here for 3 months, knowing a lot of people. He started getting invitations to events and things, and eventually he landed a job. So that's the first couple of points I would say. Your question, what is the other objective that I did not cover, Carlos? Is there something that that I can link
No,
to another?
yeah, I think was more like related to this is an international company, super international, especially within the region, right? So you're covering from Egypt to KSA, and I think it's more like the in regards to the structure of the company and how do you I think from your perspective, right? How do you navigate this and uh, are there other cultural factors that you should take into consideration? Like you're in Egypt and then KSA, and then you have the UAE,
Yeah.
like Qatar. Is it very different?
Yes.
'Cause we
I
tend to look at the Middle East as a block, like you know,
yeah.
and it's
You'll probably have gone through what I'm gonna say now. Sometimes when I go to Brazil, people think I'm rude because I'm straight to the point. And I had to learn that first working with Americans, then especially in Europe, in Amsterdam as well. And I had to forget a lot of that here. So you can still go to an extent straight to the point, but I received feedback when I moved on that my style of communication, because I was direct to the point, was aggressive. So I had to adjust quite a lot how, and again, the relationship needs to come first. Then we talk business. Yeah. But there is a whole layer that doesn't change, which is human behavior. In the end of the day, you guys probably have a lot of experience. You will know that you cannot treat the different customers the same way or different service providers the same way. The same applies. No, personality wise, all this kind of thing. Of course, it doesn't change. But if you forget that you for a day, let's say you moved here, you can ruin your equity for a long time. Let's just put it that way.
Understood. Very nice. I think we covered everything. So how CPG growth in the Middle East compares to LATAM, transformation, what transformation actually looks like in traditional companies, how you're navigating a very diverse multi-country operation, also tech investments. Last one, I promise. So if you look at tech investments, that are being made and what's still lagging, if you could just give us a few words on how are you guys looking at technology? What are you investing in? And I think you mentioned a lot the foundational aspects as well that you're still creating, but just for
So again, you can compare Aghtia with a P&G or a Reckitt there who have a global capability and decades of capability building, right? So when you have a company that started, a middle-sized company started investing in the past few years, mostly, there's a catch-up to do. So building your own data cloud, building your own automated reports. We have a lot of manual reporting happening in the company today. So there's a lot of opportunities to automate. IBP, integrated business planning, is not something that we're doing today. We're starting the conversation to implement that. On e-commerce, the whole consumer journey automation. Again, people think customer service is CRM, but really, is it? No, right? So all the marketing automation needs to be proven from scratch, and we're doing some of that today. a lot of legacy in custom apps. So imagine this, because family owned company, many times your technology department is one person or two, and what does that cause you? You will probably outsource the whole strategy of a solution or capability. And that means, I'll give you an example. We inherited a direct to consumer business, e-commerce business, that was completely dependent on SAP. So if SAP, which is a backend solution, has a problem, you can't sell on the website. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So all these, reducing these dependencies, the legacy, there's a lot of these basic things going on. We have a big roadmap, Carlos, that I can guarantee to you. A lot of work to be done by, not only by me, by my company, by lots of the companies that are here.
Sweet. All right, man. If people want to know more about you and connect, what's the best way?
LinkedIn is always the best way for professional connections. I'll just reach out. I'll very easily give you my email address. Depending on the matter, maybe if the WhatsApp, we can always meet online. I'm open to this kind of thing, of course. We should all be. And thank you for the opportunity. Michaela, Laiz, and Hawan, thank you especially to you for joining the session today and hearing this humble man talk to you for a few minutes. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, man. This was amazing. Thanks very much.
All
Thanks,
right,
guys.
have a wonderful day.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
good one, guys.